All right, now that we've placed our boxes and adjusted slightly their opacity, which for some reason it's not showing, so I'm going to do that again. Okay, I'm going to adjust it up to 90. We can add in our page numbers and just a simple little letter or something that has to do with the overall magazine layout. It's as easy as adding or simply typing directly into the graphic box. I just took my T tool, and instead of clicking and dragging to make a new text box, I just click inside the text box. So let's just call them, I don't know, page 12 and 13 or something. Go ahead and make sure it's big enough. In fact, you might just want to use your dropper and copy the text that you've already had. To center it, I'm going to go ahead and use this tab up here because it's easy to get to. Okay, and then how do I get it in the center? Well, there's a couple of ways that you can do that. One would be you could hit enter, but in that case it goes off the page. I find one of the easiest ways to center text in a pre-sized box, as long as I know I'm not adding more, is under this character. The character, there's this little option right here that allows you to move the text up or down. So what I like to do when I know I'm not adding anything else, I'm just going to use that negative tool until I get it where I want it. I actually want it to be a little more towards the top. Okay, so now I have a text box. I can just simply highlight it, say Control C, come over to this other one, and say Control V, and then I just need to change it to say 13. So that is my page numbers. I will go ahead and add a letter up here in this text box. And again, I'm just going to click in the text box. I'm going to add a letter E the same way they did because it works for mine. Use whatever letter makes the most sense. Usually this would probably correspond to the actual magazine title. So if it was People Magazine or E! Entertainment or ESPN Magazine, it's probably a logo that has to do with the front cover. But for this instance, just use something that makes sense for your project. So I added my E. I'm going to use my dropper again, get something similar to that. And then I'm just going to continue playing around with it using my character tool. I'm going to go ahead and center it. And then I'm going to play around with it again, this tool. But I also want to try to make it fill that space. So when you get past 72, it makes sense to just kind of type in the numbers. I'm getting close. I'll bump it up to 120. And then I would actually like to play around with getting it to be located right in the bottom right-hand corner, almost so it overlaps the red box. Okay. And the way to do that is I'm going to adjust my setting over there. And then make even. Adjust my width back to a regular full 100% width to make sure it's highlighted, but right. That makes me a little too big. I'm just going to adjust downwards until it appears back in the box. Okay, that works. Last thing I'm going to do is I actually want that to be white. And I think I would like for my page numbers below to be white as well. Once you have added those, that should complete your magazine layout. Now, I do want to show you one other thing that could be useful. You do not have to do this. I just simply want you to follow along with this step. If you have time, it might be a good idea to look on the internet to see if you can find a similar file. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add one more graphic, which is actually a vector file, something that you would edit and use in Adobe Illustrator. If you want to go online and try to find a vector file of, say, a map or a flag for the city that you chose, then make sure you just type in vector or .eps. That is a vector extension, similar to the way a photo has a .jpeg. Okay, so here's my vector. It's an Illustrator file because it's a vector. I'm going to go ahead and place it. Okay. And it's interesting because it's placing it within a bounding box that is actually fairly small, but that's the size of the Illustrator page size. So I'm going to have to go in and edit this in Illustrator, which is what I'd like to show you. So what you do whenever placing a Photoshop or Illustrator document, you do not need to go and open that file through a different route. What you can do is simply right click and say Edit Original. I like this option because any changes I make in Illustrator or say Photoshop will automatically update in my InDesign file. You could obviously go open the file, open Photoshop, edit it, save it, and then relink the file. But by using the Edit Original, it does all of that for you. So I'm going to take my vector first before I do anything else, and I'm just going to resize it. It needs to be in the paper space. And you don't need to know how to do this because we haven't gone over it yet. But what I'm also going to do is I'm going to delete the white background, so that all I see in my InDesign file is the map itself. I'm also going to take this swatch, okay, this red swatch, because I want to match that red. And I'm just going to look at my numbers here. It's an RGB 139, 22, 12. So I can come over to my Illustrator. I'm going to take my red. And I'm actually going to take my RGB and I'm going to make it match 132, 22, 12. You can load swatches between the two programs, but that's a little bit more advanced and you don't need to get into that too. So now I simply say save. Sorry, my computer's a little slow. I'm going to close it, and you will see that it automatically updates in InDesign. I can then use my fitting option, and I'm going to say fill frame proportionally, and now have this graphic that I want to work with. So I actually think this is a really nice graphic. Whoever did it did a good job with it. So I want to find a place for it where it can interact with the things that I already have going on. Right now, I am actually going to put it as kind of an overlay over my title, and I'm going to get rid of this picture right here. That makes sense for the horn there, the horn of Ethiopia, to kind of go into that space. Once I get it sized the way I want it, okay, I'm going to turn down the opacity again because I want it to be less obvious than the pictures themselves. Then I'm going to send it to the back. Now this is going to take a little bit of arranging because once I send it to the back, then this white box over here will be in the way. So I'm going to have to send that to the back. I can. Moving things around until I get them layered exactly how I want. Alright, now I have my map of Ethiopia. I've filled this space, and what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to move this title right up in here and use these lines that are present on the map. Keep my same titles, I'm just going to rearrange them slightly. And this is the kind of design you're going to be doing on your personal projects. Okay, you're going to be working within the constraints of an idea that you already have, but then you're also going to be adjusting to make sure that it looks good. I would like for you to turn in a tutorial file that you have thought about the pictures you chose, that you have arranged them to make sure that, yes, you are copying from the original tutorial to learn the program, but you always want to turn something in that you're proud of and that clearly shows time and effort went into it other than just copying. So take a few minutes before you save it and just see if there's anything else you can add. Are there areas where you may be able to enhance the layout that's already existing to work better with the pictures that you chose? Once you're confident that you have changed everything that you need to change, I would ask that you go ahead and save your InDesign file. So you're going to say save, okay? And then what you're going to do is you're going to do a file export. You're going to export this into the Project Turn-In folder, Project 1, Tutorial, right? That way I can grade this tutorial to make sure you've done what you need. I also may need to open your InDesign file to make sure you've done everything properly. So do not remove that InDesign file or move it anywhere other than where it's saved right now, which should be in your Project 1 tutorial folder in your individual folder. Once you have exported it, then you are done with this tutorial and you are ready to begin working on your own personal magazine project. There are lots more options in this particular program that you can explore when you begin working on your own personal project. There are also a lot of other tutorials out there that you could look at to gain even more knowledge, but you should have enough information at the very minimum to make your own magazine layout in a basic fashion.